Imagine giving two people the exact same education, the exact same salary, and the exact same opportunities. Fast forward 15 years. One has built a life of financial freedom. The other is trapped in debt, constantly stressed about money, and wondering where it all went. The strange part is that neither of them was smarter. Neither inherited a fortune. Neither won the lottery. The difference wasn't mathematics. It was psychology. Most people think becoming wealthy is about learning how money works, but that's only half the story. The other half is learning how your mind works, because every financial decision you make, every purchase, every investment, every risk you avoid is influenced by emotions long before logic ever gets involved.
That's why some of the smartest people in the world still struggle financially, while others with average incomes quietly build extraordinary wealth. Let's meet David. He graduated near the top of his class. He became a successful engineer, earning more than almost everyone around him. Every year his salary increased. Every year he promised himself he would finally start building wealth. But somehow, every raise disappeared. A bigger apartment, a luxury car, designer clothes, the newest phone, better vacations. From the outside, David looked successful, but behind closed doors, he was living paycheck to paycheck. The higher his income climbed, the more expensive his lifestyle became.
Across the city lived Sarah. She never earned as much as David. Her salary was ordinary. She didn't drive a luxury car. She rarely posted pictures of expensive restaurants or exotic vacations. Most people would have assumed David was wealthier. They were wrong. While David spent his money trying to look successful, Sarah quietly spent her money buying freedom. Every month she invested first. She increased her skills. She avoided unnecessary debt. She focused on assets instead of appearances. 10 years later, Sarah had financial security. David had financial pressure. So why did this happen? Because the human brain wasn't designed to build wealth.
It was designed to survive. Thousands of years ago, survival depended on immediate rewards. If food was available, you ate it. If shelter was available, you took it. Waiting could mean death. That instinct still lives inside us today. The problem is, modern money doesn't reward immediate gratification. It rewards patience. And that's where most people lose the battle without even realizing it. Think about the last time you bought something you weren't planning to buy. Maybe you opened an app for 5 minutes, and suddenly you were checking out with something you didn't need. Maybe it was on sale. Maybe everyone else seemed to own one. Maybe you convinced yourself you deserved it after a stressful week. In that moment, your brain wasn't calculating long-term financial consequences.
It was chasing a small burst of dopamine, a temporary feeling of satisfaction. The purchase felt good, but only for a moment. Now compare that feeling to investing. You transfer money into an investment account, and nothing exciting happens. No applause, no instant reward, no feeling of luxury. In fact, it can almost feel like you've lost money because you can't immediately spend it anymore. That's why investing feels uncomfortable for beginners. The reward comes much later. Your brain loves instant pleasure, but wealth is built through delayed rewards. This explains one of the biggest financial mysteries in the world. Why do intelligent people make poor financial decisions?
Because intelligence doesn't protect you from emotions. Some of the brightest people panic when markets fall. Others overspend trying to impress people they barely know. Many earn six-figure salaries but save almost nothing. Knowledge alone isn't enough. If emotions control your decisions, your income eventually starts serving your impulses instead of your future. Now here's something even more surprising. Wealth isn't usually destroyed by one terrible decision. It's quietly destroyed by hundreds of small emotional decisions repeated over many years. An unnecessary subscription here, a financed luxury car there, a purchase made out of boredom, a vacation paid for with debt. None of them seem dangerous on their own, but together they slowly shape an entirely different financial future. So, if your own mind is working against you, how do wealthy people overcome it? What habits allow them to stay calm when everyone else panics, to invest when others hesitate, and to build wealth?
And to build wealth while the average person keeps starting over? The answer has nothing to do with having more self-control. It begins with understanding one psychological trap that almost everyone falls into without ever realizing it.
There's a reason casinos don't need every player to lose every night. They only need people to believe that the next win is just one more bet away. The financial world works in a surprisingly similar way. Every day, social media shows us people buying luxury cars, making fast profits, and living lifestyles that seem just within reach. What we rarely see are the debts, the failed investments, the sleepless nights, or the years of invisible discipline behind genuine success. Our brains compare our reality to someone else's highlight reel, and that's where expensive mistakes begin. Psychologists have a name for this: social comparison. We naturally measure our success against the people around us.
The problem is that the people around us are often trying to impress someone else too. It's an endless cycle. One neighbor buys a luxury SUV, another upgrades to a bigger house. Someone at work wears an expensive watch. Without realizing it, your financial decisions slowly stop reflecting your own goals and start reflecting everyone else's expectations.
Let's go back to David. One afternoon, a colleague arrived at the office driving a brand new luxury car. Everyone admired it. Compliments filled the parking lot. David couldn't stop thinking about it. His own car worked perfectly, but suddenly it didn't feel good enough. A week later, he signed a loan for a car that cost more than he had ever planned to spend. The monthly payment looked manageable, but the payment wasn't the real cost. The real cost was the investments he would never make with that money over the next 10 years. He didn't just buy a car, he unknowingly sold part of his future.
Sarah experienced the same temptation. She admired beautiful things just like everyone else. But before buying anything expensive, she asked herself one simple question: am I buying this because it improves my life, or because it improves someone else's opinion of me? That single question saved her thousands of dollars over the years. She understood something many people never do. Looking wealthy and becoming wealthy are often two completely different goals. Now let's talk about fear. Not fear of failure, fear of losing money. Imagine the stock market falls by 20%.
News headlines scream that investors are panicking. Friends tell you they're selling everything. Your investment account turns red. In that moment, logic becomes incredibly quiet. Emotion takes over. Your brain isn't thinking about what the market could be worth in 10 years. It's trying to escape today's discomfort. That's why so many people sell at the worst possible moment, not because they're irrational, but because they're human. The world's greatest investors understand this psychological trap. They know that markets have always moved in cycles. Fear comes, fear goes, optimism returns. Then fear comes back again. But over long periods of time, disciplined investors focus less on temporary emotions and more on long-term ownership. They don't try to predict every rise and every fall. They simply refuse to let emotion make permanent decisions for temporary situations. There's another invisible trap almost nobody notices. It's called lifestyle inflation. Imagine you receive a raise of $1,000 every month. Most people immediately start improving their lifestyle. A better apartment, better furniture, more expensive restaurants, better vacations. None of these purchases seem unreasonable. After all, they earned the raise. But years later, they discover something shocking. They're earning twice as much as before, yet they still feel financially trapped.
Every increase in income was matched by an increase in spending. Sarah followed a different rule. Every time her income increased, she increased her investments before increasing her lifestyle. She still enjoyed life, she still traveled, she still celebrated achievements, but she refused to let every raise disappear into bigger monthly expenses. Instead of making success look expensive, she made success become valuable. Here's one of the greatest misconceptions about money. People think financial freedom comes from earning more. But if higher income automatically created wealth, every highly paid professional would retire rich.
Reality tells a different story. Financial freedom isn't determined by how much enters your bank account. It's determined by how much stays working for your future after everything else has been paid. But perhaps the biggest psychological mistake of all isn't spending too much, or fearing investments, or comparing yourself to others. It's believing that you'll change tomorrow. Tomorrow you'll save more. Tomorrow you'll invest. tomorrow you'll stop wasting money. Yet tomorrow quietly becomes next month, then next year, until one day you realize that time has been making financial decisions on your behalf. And that's where the final lesson changes everything.
Here's a question that almost nobody asks themselves. If you knew exactly what to do with money, would you actually do it? Most people assume the answer is yes. But think about it. Nearly everyone knows that saving is important. Most people know they should avoid unnecessary debt. They know investing early is better than investing late. They know buying things they can't afford is a bad idea. The information isn't hidden. The challenge has never been knowledge. The challenge is behavior. Imagine two people standing at the bottom of the same mountain. Both know the path to the top. One starts climbing immediately.
The other spends years reading books about climbing, watching videos about climbing, and waiting for the perfect weather. 10 years later, one is standing at the summit. The other is still standing at the bottom, with far more knowledge, but far less progress. Money works the same way. Action beats perfect information almost every time. Let's return to David and Sarah one final time. David never stopped believing that one day everything would be different. One day he'd save more. One day he'd invest consistently. One day he'd stop buying things he didn't need. But every one day was replaced by another excuse. A busy month, a promotion.
The holidays, a vacation. Life kept moving, and so did time. Without realizing it, he wasn't making financial decisions anymore. His habits were making them for him. Sarah wasn't perfect. She made mistakes. She bought things she later regretted. She experienced market declines. She questioned herself more than once. But there was one difference. She never allowed one mistake to become a permanent habit. Every month, she returned to the same simple system. Spend less than you earn. Buy assets before liabilities. Invest consistently. Ignore the noise. Repeat. Years later, the difference between them wasn't luck. It wasn't intelligence. It was the quiet power of small decisions repeated hundreds of times.
This is the greatest lesson psychology teaches us about money. Your financial future is rarely shaped by one life-changing decision. It's shaped by thousands of ordinary decisions that nobody else sees. Every time you choose investing over impulse, every time you avoid buying something just to impress other people, every time you stay calm while everyone else panics, you're casting a vote for the person you'll become 10 years from now. The wealthiest people in the world aren't free because they never made financial mistakes. They're free because they refuse to let emotions remain in control. They created systems that protected them from themselves. They automated their investments. They followed long-term plans instead of short-term feelings. They understood that discipline isn't about being motivated every day.
It's about making good decisions even on the days you don't feel like it. So if there's one idea to remember from this video, let it be this. Your biggest financial enemy isn't inflation. It isn't the stock market. It isn't your salary. It's the version of yourself that keeps choosing today's comfort over tomorrow's freedom. The good news is that psychology can work in your favor just as easily as it can work against you. Every positive financial habit makes the next one easier. The first investment leads to the second. The second leads to confidence. Confidence leads to consistency. And consistency is what quietly builds wealth while everyone else is waiting for the perfect opportunity.
One day, you'll look back at your financial life and realize that the most important investment you ever made wasn't in a stock, an ETF, or a piece of real estate. It was the decision to change the way you think about money. Because once your thinking changes, your decisions change. And once your decisions change, your future changes with them. If this video changed the way you think about money, subscribe to WealthVeil and join a community that's learning how to build lasting wealth through knowledge, discipline, and smart decisions, not luck. Now I want to hear from you.
What do you think is the biggest psychological mistake people make with money? Is it fear, impatience, lifestyle inflation, or trying to impress others? Share your answer in the comments. I read every one of them, and your perspective might help someone else change their financial future. And don't stop here. Watch the next video, Why the Middle Class Never Gets Rich.
Because once you understand the psychology behind money, the next step is discovering the financial system that keeps millions of hardworking people stuck, and, more importantly, how to escape it.